Most people make tea the same way they always have: boiling water. Bag in, wait, done. And for most of what's in this video, that's quietly destroying the one thing that makes the plant worth drinking. There is a weed on this list, something people pull out and bin every spring. It has more clinical trial support for one specific condition than most supplements on the pharmacy shelf. There is a tea so well studied for blood pressure that the numbers from the trials are genuinely uncomfortable to read if you've been paying for a prescription. There is one on this list that your brain is already wired to respond to. The receptor it targets, researchers found it before they found the plant. They just didn't know what the plant was yet. And there is one where the preparation method is everything. Get it wrong and you absorb almost none of it. Most people have been getting it wrong their entire lives. 10 teas, each one with a mechanism your body already knows how to use. Stay to the end. The last one is the one most people overlook entirely, and it might be the one you need most. Green tea is not exotic. I keep it next to the kettle, same as anyone else. But what's inside those dried leaves is genuinely complex, something the pharmaceutical industry has been quietly studying for 40 years. The compound that does the most work is called EGCG. You don't need to remember that. Think of it like this. Your cells accumulate internal rust over time, damage caused by rogue molecules bouncing around. EGCG is a rust inhibitor. It catches those molecules before they can corrode the machinery. Clinical trials have demonstrated that EGCG can suppress a cellular signal called NFKB, the body's main sound the alarm switch for inflammation. Think of NFKB as a very sensitive smoke detector. Green tea doesn't remove the smoke. It raises the threshold before the alarm triggers, so your body isn't constantly in crisis mode over nothing. A 2020 meta-analysis pooled data from over 100,000 participants. Regular green tea drinkers, 3 or more cups daily, showed measurably lower rates of cardiovascular events. That is not a small data set. That is population-level evidence. There is one important nuance from my nursing years. Green tea contains catechins that can interfere with certain blood thinners, specifically warfarin. If you're on that medication, speak to your prescriber before making this a daily habit. For everyone else, 3 cups is well inside the safe range. My method is simple, and the temperature matters more than most people realize. Boiling water scorches the catechins. You actually reduce the medicinal value. Pull the water at around 80 degrees. If you don't have a temperature kettle, just let boiling water sit for 2 minutes. Then pour over 1 heaped teaspoon of loose leaf. Steep for exactly 3 minutes. I use a small hourglass. Any longer and the tannins build up, it turns bitter, and the extra tannins can actually block iron absorption. 3 minutes. That's the sweet spot. Drink it plain or with a very small amount of lemon. Vitamin C from the lemon actually increases how much of the catechins your gut can absorb. That's well documented in pharmacokinetic studies. Milk, on the other hand, binds to the catechins and reduces that absorption. Your choice, but now you know the trade-off. People call chamomile a gentle tea, and it is, but calling it gentle undersells what it's actually doing at a receptor level in your brain. There is a compound in chamomile called apigenin. Research indicates it interacts with receptor sites in the brain that are also targeted by pharmaceutical benzodiazepines, drugs like Valium. The exact mechanism is still being studied and appears to be more complex than a simple lock and key. But the calming direction of effect is consistent across multiple lines of research. Think of those receptor sites as a dimmer switch for nervous system activity. Benzodiazepines slam that switch toward minimum. Apigenin appears to quietly turn it down a notch or 2. Same direction, much gentler, and without the dependency profile. A clinical trial published in the journal Phytomedicine, a peer-reviewed pharmacology publication, followed patients with generalized anxiety disorder for 8 weeks. The chamomile extract group showed statistically significant reductions in anxiety scores compared to placebo. This is not folk wisdom. This is a controlled trial, secondary to the anxiety mechanism. Chamomile has well-documented effects on gut spasm. In the wall of the intestine, there are smooth muscle fibers that can cramp. chamomile contains antispasmodic compounds that ease that cramping. This is why it's been used for colic and IBS for centuries. The traditional use and the biochemistry agree with each other, which is always a good sign. I grow chamomile along the south-facing fence. In Oregon, it blooms mid-July. But dried chamomile from a reputable herbalist works equally well. The apigenin doesn't degrade rapidly with careful drying. 2 heaped teaspoons of dried flower heads, covered immediately after pouring the water. The covering matters. Chamomile's volatile aromatic oils, the ones that carry some of the calming chemistry, will escape in the steam if you leave the mug open. A saucer on top for 5 minutes is all it takes. I drink my chamomile 1 hour before bed. Not right before, 1 hour. That gives the apigenin time to reach the bloodstream and start working at those receptor sites before you're lying down. I've noticed a marked difference in how quickly I settle into sleep when I keep that timing. Ginger is one of those plants where the traditional use is so well supported by the data, it's almost embarrassing that it's not standard clinical practice. The active compounds are called gingerols and shogols. Gingerols are present in fresh ginger. When you dry and heat the root, gingerols convert to shogols, which are actually more potent anti-inflammatory agents. Both of them block the same inflammatory pathways as over-the-counter NSAIDs, drugs like ibuprofen, but without the gastric lining erosion that long-term NSAID use causes. Think of NSAIDs as a bulldozer clearing an inflammatory roadblock. Gingerols are a targeted traffic controller. Same result, different collateral damage. The nausea mechanism is particularly well established. Ginger's active compounds inhibit a serotonin receptor in the gut called 5-HT3, the same receptor type that chemotherapy anti-nausea drugs target. The difference is that pharmaceutical drugs block that receptor competitively at its main binding site. Ginger's gingerols appear to inhibit it through a different non-competitive mechanism, a separate modulatory site on the same receptor. Same target, different point of entry. Evidence is based on multiple clinical trials, including a notable study in obstetric patients, showing ginger extract comparable to some pharmaceutical antiemetics for morning sickness. There is a circulation piece that I find genuinely interesting. Preliminary observations suggest that regular ginger consumption reduces platelet aggregation, the stickiness of blood cells that leads to clot formation. This matters for cardiovascular health. It also means if you are on blood-thinning medications, add ginger as a daily medicinal tea only with your prescriber's input. Fresh root is always my first choice. I keep a piece in the crisper drawer year-round. About a thumb-sized chunk per mug. Slice it thin. Don't bother peeling for tea. The skin carries compounds too. 12 to 15 thin slices in a small pot, covered with 2 cups of cold water. Then bring it to a gentle simmer and let it go for 10 minutes. Strain it into your mug. A teaspoon of raw honey softens the heat and adds its own antibacterial profile, a slice of fresh lemon. This is the formula I've used through every Oregon winter for the past 12 years. When everyone around me was reaching for decongestants, I was reaching for this. I will be honest, peppermint is the one on this list that surprises people most when they hear the mechanism. It is not about refreshment. Peppermint contains menthol, and menthol activates a specific cold receptor channel called TRPM8 in the body's sensory nerve endings. Activating that channel creates a cooling sensation, yes, but it also has a direct relaxing effect on the smooth muscle tissue of the gut wall. This is why enteric-coated peppermint oil capsules are now acknowledged in multiple clinical guidelines as a first-line treatment for irritable bowel syndrome. The tea version is less concentrated, but operates on the same principle. There is also a well-supported respiratory application. Menthol vapor, inhaled through the steam of the tea, acts on receptors in the nasal passages that reduce the sensation of congestion. It does not actually shrink swollen tissue the way a decongestant drug does. What it does is reduce the perception of obstruction. In a sick patient who can't sleep because they feel like they can't breathe, that distinction matters a great deal less than the result. One caution from clinical practice. Peppermint relaxes the lower esophageal sphincter, the valve between your esophagus and stomach. For people with reflux or GERD, peppermint tea can actually worsen symptoms. This is the hidden gem on peppermint. The plant that soothes one part of the gut can irritate another. Know your patient. Know yourself. Fresh leaves, not dried, is the preference here. I have a pot of peppermint by the back door. About 10 large leaves per mug. Bruise them gently in your palm first to release the oils. Pour boiling water. For peppermint, unlike green tea, full boiling temperature is fine. Steep 5 minutes, covered. Strain and drink while the steam is still active, particularly if you're using it for a respiratory reason. The vapor is part of the delivery. This is the one I get the most questions about, and it is also the one where I have to be most careful, because there is genuine evidence here buried under a mountain of marketing. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, is one of the most studied natural anti-inflammatory agents in the scientific literature. It simultaneously suppresses multiple inflammatory signals in the body. Where ibuprofen blocks one specific pathway, curcumin appears to act on several simultaneously. The analogy I use: ibuprofen is a targeted sniper. Curcumin is a jamming device for the whole inflammatory communication network. Here is the critical problem. Curcumin is barely absorbed by the gut on its own. Studies show less than 1% bioavailability in isolation. This is where the traditional preparation is actually smarter than the modern supplement pill. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine that dramatically increases curcumin absorption. The most cited human pharmacokinetic study, Shoba et al., 1998, measured an increase of up to 2,000%. Independent replication has been variable, and the study used specific high doses, so the exact number matters less than the principle. You need the fat and the black pepper. That much is consistent across the literature. A meta-analysis of clinical trials on curcumin for osteoarthritis found measurable reductions in pain scores comparable to some NSAID medications, but without the gastric side effects. Studies suggest this is a legitimate application for people managing chronic joint pain. Not a replacement for acute injury management, but for the low-grade daily inflammation of aging joints, the evidence holds. I use whole dried root, ground fresh. If that's not accessible, quality turmeric powder works. But look at the color. Deep orange. If it's pale yellow, it's old stock with degraded curcumin. 1 teaspoon of turmeric, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil or any good fat. Fat also increases absorption. Pour hot oat milk or water over. Whisk until there are no lumps. That's your golden tea. Drink it warm. I have been making this every evening after dinner for 6 years. My knuckles, which were significantly stiff in my late 50s, are noticeably better. I can't attribute that to one thing, but I can tell you what I changed when the improvement started. This is the plant most Western medicine practitioners have never heard of, and it is the one I most wish had been part of my nursing education. Tulsi is classified as an adaptogen. That word gets misused constantly. What adaptogen means, specifically, is that the plant contains compounds that modulate the body's stress hormone axis, the HPA axis, which is the communication pathway between the brain and the adrenal glands that controls cortisol release. Cortisol is your body's primary stress chemical. Think of the HPA axis as a thermostat for your stress response. Tulsi appears to recalibrate that thermostat when chronic stress has pushed it into a permanently elevated setting. Evidence indicates that eugenol, the main volatile compound in Tulsi, also exerts direct anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects. Preliminary observations suggest Tulsi tea may support healthy blood sugar management by improving insulin sensitivity, though this area requires more robust clinical data before strong claims can be made. What is well documented in the ethno-pharmacological record, Tulsi has been used continuously in Ayurvedic medicine for over 3,000 years for stress, immunity, and respiratory conditions. The depth of that tradition is itself a form of evidence. I came to Tulsi late. A colleague from Kerala, A cardiologist who had done her early training in Mysore pressed a packet of dried tulsi into my hand about 15 years ago and said simply, "For your cortisol." I thought she was being poetic. I tried it during a particularly difficult week. The difference was not subtle. Tulsi is the most flexible tea on this list in terms of timing. It does not have the sedating quality of chamomile, so it is safe to drink in the morning. I make a large pot in the morning and leave it to cool. It is one of the teas that is pleasant cold as well. 1 tablespoon of fresh leaves, or 1 teaspoon dried, per cup. Full boiling water. 5-minute steep. The flavor is complex. Clove-like, slightly peppery, with a floral back note. Some people find it immediately pleasant. Others take a few days to adjust. Give it a week before you judge it. Hibiscus is the tea that made me sit down and reread 3 separate papers to make sure I was reading the numbers correctly. The anthocyanins in hibiscus, the pigments that give it that deep crimson color, have been studied for their effect on blood pressure. A clinical trial published in the Journal of Nutrition recruited participants with pre-hypertension and mild hypertension, randomized them to 3 cups of hibiscus tea daily versus placebo, and measured outcomes over 6 weeks. The hibiscus group showed a reduction in systolic blood pressure of approximately 7 points on average. To put that in context, that is within the range of a low-dose pharmaceutical antihypertensive. The mechanism appears to involve the ACE pathway, the same pathway targeted by a very common class of blood pressure medications called ACE inhibitors. Hibiscus anthocyanins appear to act as mild natural ACE inhibitors. Same mechanism, much gentler magnitude. This is why, again, anyone already on antihypertensive medication should discuss adding therapeutic amounts of hibiscus with their prescriber. The direction of effect is the same, you can overstack. Secondary finding that is well supported. Hibiscus has measurable effects on LDL cholesterol in several studies, with evidence indicating modest reductions in LDL, alongside increases in HDL. The lipid profile data is not as dramatic as the blood pressure data, but it adds to the cardiovascular picture. Cold brewing hibiscus is my preferred method. 2 tablespoons of dried calices in a liter of cold water, 12 hours in the refrigerator. The slow cold extraction produces a different and, I think, more pleasant flavor profile than hot steeping. Less sharp, more fruity. Hot method if you need it now. 2 teaspoons, boiling water, 5 minutes, strain. Add a small amount of honey if the tartness is too sharp. Hibiscus is genuinely quite acidic, similar to tart cherry. That acidity, by the way, is not a flaw. The organic acids are part of the therapeutic chemistry. Lemon balm is the underdog on this list. It grows like a weed. It is nearly impossible to kill, which I appreciate, and most people who grow it use it only as a culinary herb. They are leaving a significant amount of its value on the table. The key compound is rosmarinic acid. It inhibits an enzyme called GABA transaminase, and GABA is the brain's primary calming neurotransmitter, the blocker of the blocker mechanism. GABA's function is to slow down neural activity. GABA transaminase is the enzyme that breaks GABA down. Block the enzyme, and GABA stays elevated longer. The result is a prolonged calming effect. This is, in simplified terms, the same direction of action as some anti-anxiety drugs, achieved through a different step in the same pathway. A study using lemon balm extract in participants with mild anxiety and sleep disturbance found improvements in both mood and sleep quality over a 2-week period. Evidence is also based on strong recorded ethnopharmacological use in European folk medicine, where it has been used continuously for cognitive calm since at least the Middle Ages. Melissa, the genus name, comes from the Greek word for honeybee. The bees knew something. One area I find particularly interesting. Early research suggests rosmarinic acid may inhibit the thyroid-stimulating hormone receptor in a specific way that makes lemon balm potentially relevant for hyperthyroidism management. This is preliminary, but it also means if you have any thyroid condition, discuss high-dose lemon balm tea with your prescriber before making it a daily practice. Fresh is dramatically better for lemon balm than dried. The volatile compounds that carry much of the therapeutic chemistry degrade significantly with drying. If you can grow it, grow it. It will take over a corner of your garden enthusiastically. 8 to 10 fresh leaves, torn or lightly bruised per cup. Boiling water. Cover for 8 minutes, longer than most teas, because rosmarinic acid takes slightly more time to fully extract. Combine with chamomile for a synergistic evening sleep blend. The two mechanisms work on different receptor systems and complement each other well. I want to address the reaction I always get when I bring up nettle, but it stings. Yes, it does. And the moment heat or pressure is applied, in drying, in blanching, in boiling, the irritant compounds in the stinging hairs are neutralized completely. The main culprits are histamine, acetylcholine, and serotonin, neurotransmitters that trigger the sting response on contact. The brewed tea has none of that activity, none. Nettle is one of the most nutritionally dense plants in a temperate garden. Iron, calcium, magnesium, vitamins K, C, and beta-carotene in meaningful concentrations. But the pharmacological interest goes beyond nutrition. Nettle contains compounds that inhibit aromatase, an enzyme involved in estrogen conversion, and also show preliminary evidence of supporting healthy testosterone levels by reducing binding to a protein called SHBG. Evidence for this application is based on in vitro and some preliminary clinical observation rather than large-scale trials. But the ethnopharmacological use for hormonal support in older adults is recorded across European and North American traditions. The most robustly supported clinical application is nettle's effect on allergic rhinitis, hay fever. Multiple controlled trials have shown nettle extract inhibits the histamine pathway involved in allergic response. It does not block histamine the same way an antihistamine drug does. It appears to work earlier in the cascade, reducing histamine production rather than blocking its receptor. For seasonal allergy sufferers, this is a meaningful distinction because you don't get the drowsiness that comes with many antihistamines. I start drinking nettle tea in early February, before the alder pollen starts in Oregon. By the time spring hits, the inflammatory baseline is already lower. That is the practical application of the mechanism. You use it preventatively, not reactively. Harvest young tops, the first 4 to 6 leaves from the growing tip, with gloves. Once blanched in hot water, they are completely safe. Alternatively, dried nettle from a reputable supplier works well. Just ensure it's stored away from light, which degrades the chlorophyll and some of the active compounds. 2 teaspoons of dried nettle in boiling water. Steep 10 minutes. Nettle needs a longer steep than delicate flowers to fully release its mineral content. Strain thoroughly. The resulting tea is a pleasant, mildly grassy flavor, not unlike a light green tea. I drink 2 cups daily during allergy season, 1 cup through the rest of the year. This last one is for anyone who has spent too many nights staring at the ceiling. Valerian contains a sesquiterpene compound called valerianic acid, the primary pharmacologically active component. It acts as a positive allosteric modulator at GABA-A receptors in the brain, which means it makes the brain's own calming signal, GABA, work more effectively. Valerian also contains isovaleric acid, which is largely responsible for the plant's distinctive smell. The two are related, but serve different roles. The analogy I find useful: if anxiety is a room with music playing too loud, GABA is the volume dial. Valerian keeps a hand on that dial and prevents it from drifting back up. A systematic review of randomized controlled trials on valerian for sleep found that across multiple studies, valerian showed measurable improvements in sleep quality and latency, the time it takes to fall asleep, compared to placebo. The evidence is strongest for sleep onset latency specifically. It does not knock you out like a sedative. It smooths the transition into sleep. Important distinction. Valerian has a notably strong smell. The fresh root smells, and I'm not being unkind here, like old gym socks. This is caused by isovaleric acid, which is released as the root dries. The taste of the brewed tea is earthy, not unpleasant, but strong. I want you to be prepared. The smell does not reflect the effectiveness. It is simply a characteristic of the chemistry. 1 teaspoon of dried valerian root, not powder, the whole dried root pieces, boiling water. Steep covered for 10 to 15 minutes. The covering is important. It traps the volatile acids that are part of the active profile. Drink it 30 to 45 minutes before you intend to sleep. Not right at bedtime. You want the compound circulating before the sleep window opens. I would not recommend this tea for daytime use or for anyone who needs to drive afterward. The sedation, while gentler than pharmaceutical options, is real. One note from clinical practice: valerian can interact with CNS depressants, alcohol, certain sleep medications, some anxiolytics. It stacks. This is not a tea to combine casually with other sedating substances. Used on its own, in the standard dose, it is well tolerated, but it is genuinely pharmacologically active, and it deserves to be treated as such. 10 plants, 10 well-documented mechanisms, all of them growing, or available to grow, within a few feet of where you sleep. I want to be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying to throw away your prescriptions. I'm not saying plants are a substitute for emergency medicine, for surgery, for the kinds of interventions that modern healthcare does genuinely well. What I'm saying is that there is a space between acute crisis management and doing nothing, a daily maintenance layer of physiological support. And this is where plants are not just effective, but are, in many cases, better supported by evidence than we give them credit for. If one of these teas is new to you, start there. 1 cup, 1 week. Pay attention to what you notice. Your body is a careful observer if you give it the conditions to be heard. If you found any of this useful, and particularly if something in here changes how you look at that corner of your garden, subscribe to this channel. I put out new content every week, and the comment section is where the most interesting conversations happen. I want to leave you with a question, and I'd genuinely like to read your answers below. Of the 10 mechanisms we covered today, the GABA pathways, the ACE-inhibiting anthocyanins, the bioavailability problem with curcumin, the TRPM8 cold receptor activation, which one shifted your understanding the most? And has knowing the mechanism changed whether you try the plant? Tell me in the comments.